There's a subtle poison we've all learned to drink, believing it's a medicine, an act that's loudly applauded, but which, in the silence of our true intentions, can become an escape from ourselves and a form of power over others. I'm talking about the simple act of helping. We place it on a pedestal as the greatest of all virtues. But today, I want you and I to do something radical. I want us to look at the shadow this pedestal casts. What really happens at the deepest level of our souls when we reach out to help someone? What is the real currency behind the mask of generosity? The truth, when we look it in the eye, is uncomfortable. All unsolicited help is a form of interference, and all interference is a silent declaration that says, "My way of seeing your problem is better than yours. My strength is necessary because yours is insufficient." Think about it. It's an impulse that, when unchecked by our conscience, is born less from pure love and more from an anxiety we can't bear. We see the chaos in someone else's life, and it scares us because it reminds us of our own inner chaos, of the disorder we try to hide. And so, to silence our own alarm, to feel in control, we rush to fix the other person. Help becomes a tranquilizer, not for their pain, but for our own fear. It's a way of organizing the outside world so we don't have to deal with the mess inside. We become architects of other people's lives so we don't have to face the cracks in the foundations of our own house. It's a silent and vicious pact. I'll tend your garden so I don't have to pull the weeds growing in mine. And in the process, our kindness becomes the most sophisticated of all excuses for self-neglect. Imagine a child seeing, for the first time, a butterfly struggling to emerge from its cocoon. The cocoon stirs. The tiny creature appears to be in agony. The child's heart, pure and full of good intentions, tightens. It cannot bear to see the struggle. So, it takes a small pair of scissors and, with great care, cuts the cocoon to help the butterfly free itself. The butterfly does indeed emerge easily, but its wings are shriveled, its body weak. It crawls for a moment, but never flies. What the child didn't know was that the struggle to emerge from the cocoon was the most important part. It was the effort that forced the fluid from the butterfly's body into its wings, strengthening them for flight. By helping it, by sparing it the struggle, the child actually condemned it to never see the sky. This is the most powerful metaphor for our impulsive helping. We are that well-intentioned child. We see someone struggle, and, to alleviate our own discomfort with the pain, we cut the cocoon. And, without realizing it, we may be preventing that person from developing their own wings. We fall in love with our role as hero, but we forget to ask whether our help is truly helping or simply creating a weakening dependency, a fragility that perpetuates itself. The guilt a child would feel upon realizing what they've done is the same as we should feel upon realizing that our constant help has rendered someone unable to fly on their own. This guilt, however, is insidious. Often, we feel guilt not for the harm we've caused others, but for the stain on our self-image as a good person. Our need to be the hero is so great that the other's failure to be saved becomes a reflection of our own incompetence as a savior. We take offense when the butterfly doesn't fly, not because of them, but because their inability calls into question the effectiveness of our intervention. It's the wounded ego, disguised as concern. Alan Watts invited us to see life as a dance. Think of existence not as a list of problems you need to solve, but as a song playing right now. Wisdom isn't knowing all the steps by heart, but learning to feel the rhythm and move with it. Sometimes the music is slow and sad, other times it's fast and joyful. It's not up to us to control the orchestra. It's up to us to dance. Now, what happens when we see another dancer on the ballroom floor stumble and fall? Our instinct, taught by culture, is to stop our own dance, run to them, grab them by the arms and say, "No, this is the step." But in this act, we cause two problems. First, we stop dancing. We abandon our own rhythm, our own music, to focus on the other person's mistake. Second, and much more importantly, we rob that dancer of the richest experience of all, the experience of falling. It's on the ground that we learn about balance. It's by feeling the impact that we discover where our mistake lay. It's in the struggle to stand up alone that we discover the strength in our own muscles. Our help prevents them from learning the most important lesson of dance: how to transform a stumble into a new and surprising step. It's like a father who, afraid of seeing his child fall, never lets him try to walk alone. He may spare the child a few scrapes on the knee, but he's condemning him to never experience the joy of running freely across the field. True partnership in the dance of life isn't about avoiding falls. It's about trusting in the other's ability to get back up. A good dancer doesn't hold on tightly to their partner all the time. They let go, give them space, allow for the turns, the leaps, the moments of imbalance, because they trust that the music that unites them is stronger than any misstep. Our eagerness to control each other's every move turns the dance into a forced march, where beauty and spontaneity die. This conversation of ours is not an invitation to selfishness. Quite the opposite. It's a call for a much more courageous form of love and compassion. It's the courage to continue your own dance, even when the other person falls. Not out of indifference, but out of profound respect for their learning. It's the strength to offer not a hand that pulls, but a presence that trusts. A presence that says, without words, "I see you on the ground. I'm not afraid of your fall. And I absolutely trust that you have the strength to get up and discover a step that's yours alone." This is much harder than simply intervening, because it requires us to deal with our own discomfort, with our own desire to be the hero. The word danger, which we'll use to describe certain patterns, isn't about the other person being bad. The danger lies in the web we create, a web where our need to save becomes entangled with the other's need to be saved. And in this web, both stop dancing. Both stop living. We will explore these patterns, not to point the finger at others, but to free ourselves from our compulsion to cut through the other person's cocoon. Because only by allowing the other person to fight their own battle do we truly honor them. And only then will they have the chance to finally fly. This is the foundation of everything we will explore. The radical idea that sometimes the deepest form of love is the courage to do nothing. And let this non-action not be confused with apathy. It is, in fact, the most intense and conscious action of all, the action of trust. Trusting in the strength of the other, trusting in the process of life, and, above all, trusting that true love is not the kind that traps and protects, but the kind that liberates and empowers. It is the courage to be the safe space where the butterfly can struggle to emerge from its own cocoon, even if it causes us discomfort, because we know that only then will it be able, one day, to fly freely by our side. We all have that person in our circle of contacts. The phone rings unexpectedly, and before you even answer, a part of you already knows. You already know who it is, and you already know there's a new fire to put out. This figure is the Eternal Castaway. Their life isn't a voyage, it's a series of accidents. The job ship sinks, the relationship becomes a storm. The finances are a tidal wave. And with each disaster, the distress signal is fired in your direction. You, with your generous heart, have grown accustomed to being the Coast Guard. You launch the lifeboat, pull them to safety, offer a warm blanket and a map to dry land. They cry, "Thank you," say they wouldn't know what to do without you, and promise that this time everything will be different. But it isn't. The promise dissolves in the salt water of the next crisis, and the cycle begins again. What we may never have stopped to consider is that the problem here isn't bad luck. It's a matter of identity. The castaway is not a person who he has problems. He is a person who became his problems. He became addicted to the adrenaline of the crisis and the attention that rescue provides. Normalcy, peace, would be an unbearable boredom for him, because in the silence of calm, he would have to find himself. A prospect far more frightening than any external storm. The crisis is the noise that drowns out the sound of his own emptiness. He learned that chaos generates connection, that suffering generates care, and without this currency, he feels socially bankrupt, deprived of any other means of relating to the world. Think of it like an actor who's played the same role for so long that they've forgotten who they are when the stage lights go out. The role of victim of circumstance is a powerful one. It generates sympathy, attracts attention, and, most importantly, absolves one of any responsibility. If life is a series of unpredictable storms battering you, then it's never your fault. You're just the poor soul trying to survive. Chaos becomes a comfort zone. Without the crisis, without the drama of the shipwreck, the castaway feels lost, invisible. They wouldn't know what to talk about, how to connect with people. The crisis is their script. And you, the rescuer, are their main supporting character. And here we need to be brutally honest with ourselves. We love our role too. Each successful rescue is a dose of heroism for our ego. We feel competent, strong, needed. Their weakness becomes proof of our strength. We become addicted to being the solution because it distracts us from looking at our own inadequacies, at our own lives, which may not be as heroic or meaningful as we'd like. It's a perfectly choreographed dance of mutual dependence, what psychologists call codependency. It's like two people with broken legs leaning on each other to stay upright. They create an illusion of stability, but neither is truly walking. They're just stuck together in the same place. Their embrace isn't meant to heal, but to hide each other's fractures. And both dread the day one of them will have to let go, because that would mean facing their own inability to sustain themselves. They become guardians of each other's weakness. The central question is, what happens when one of the actors decides to abandon the script? What happens when the distress signal arrives and you choose not to launch the boat? The castaway's immediate reaction will not be reflection, but panic and rage. How could you do this to me? I trusted you. You abandoned me. He will use the most powerful weapon he knows: guilt. He will try to make your decision not to intervene seem like an act of cruelty. He will retell the story, painting you as the callous villain who left him for dead. This fury is, in fact, proof that your intervention was the cornerstone supporting the entire structure of his identity, because your refusal to save him is an existential threat to him. Without a savior, the role of victim loses meaning. Without a rescue, he is forced to look at the water around him and perhaps realize something terrifying and liberating at the same time. The water only comes up to his knees. He was never really drowning. He was simply making a lot of noise in a shallow part of the ocean because the thought of having to swim to deeper waters on his own was too frightening. The idea of being free and in charge of his own destiny, of being the captain of his own ship, is the true terror he was avoiding. Because being the captain means that if the ship sinks, there will be no one else to blame. Responsibility is a heavy burden for someone accustomed to floating on the weightlessness of irresponsibility. The freedom he claimed to seek was, in fact, the last thing he wanted. True compassion, the deepest and most difficult, is having the courage to no longer participate in this farce. It's refusing your role as hero so the other can abandon their role as victim. This isn't abandonment. It's the highest form of respect. It's like teaching a child to ride a bike. There will be a moment when you'll have to take off the training wheels. Then there will be a moment when you'll be running alongside them, holding on to the seat. But the ultimate act of love is letting go. Your heart will race. You know they might fall. They might scrape their knee. But you also know they'll only learn to balance when they feel the bike wobble under their own weight. You let go not because you don't care, but because you care so much that you want them to feel the joy of pedaling alone, of feeling the wind on their face, that is, freedom. With the castaway, the principle is the same. Refusing to rescue them is the act of letting go of the bike. It's an act that says, I trust your strength more than you trust yourself. I will no longer feed your belief that you are incapable. I know you can swim. Now, start moving your arms. At first, he will hate you for it, because the comfort of dependence is sweet. But perhaps one day, he will thank you for giving him back the entire ocean of his own life, with all its storms and calms, an ocean that is his to sail. And by letting go of him, you free yourself too. You step off the stage, abandon the tiring role of savior, and can finally return to being the protagonist of your own story. A story that doesn't depend on anyone's shipwreck for its meaning. You discover that your strength doesn't need anyone's weakness to exist. Let's now talk about a quieter, but equally exhausting, dynamic. It's not the noisy storm of Castaway, but a slow, steady drought. It's the pattern of the bottomless pit. This person doesn't arrive in crisis. They arrive with an empty cup. They need your attention, your time, your validation, your listening ear. And you, seeing their need, feel good about being the source of water. You fill their cup with your energy. They drink, and for a moment, they seem satisfied. But soon, the cup is empty again, and they return, and again, and again. Over time, you notice something strange. No matter how much water you pour, the cup seems to have a hole in the bottom. Your energy, your time, your patience simply disappear, never truly quenching their thirst. This interaction isn't an exchange, like a conversation between two friends filling each other's cups. It's a system of extraction. And what makes it so difficult to perceive is that it feels so much like friendship, like love, like intimacy. It disguises itself in the clothes of vulnerability. You feel important, needed, even honored to be the confidant, the rock. But if you're honest with yourself, at the end of each encounter, you feel subtly, or sometimes profoundly, drained, as if something vital has been stripped from you. It's a fatigue that comes not from the body, but from the soul. It's the feeling of having run an emotional marathon while the other person merely watched from the finish line. It's like trying to water a plastic plant. No matter how much water you give it, it will never bloom, and the water just runs off and is lost, leaving the surrounding earth drier than before. The gratitude she offers, when she offers it at all, feels performative, a minimal payment just to ensure the well doesn't dry up, rather than a genuine acknowledgement of what has been given. You become less a person and more a function, a resource to be consumed. What is this well, this leaky cup? In psychology, we call it an inner void. It's not a lack of something you can give, like affection or money. It's a hole in the very fabric of a person's being. It's a disconnection from their own source of value and meaning, a kind of emotional illiteracy about themselves. This condition rarely arises out of nowhere. Often, it's the echo of a childhood where the parent's mirror didn't reflect back to the child their own light. If no one teaches us that we have a sun within us, we grow up believing that warmth must come from outside. Think of a cell phone that can no longer hold a charge. You plug it in, it shows 100%, but as soon as you unplug it, the battery drains in minutes. The problem isn't the charger, you. The problem is the cell phone's internal battery, the person. It can't retain the energy of self-love, of self-validation. It hasn't learned to generate its own energy. So she needs to constantly connect to external sources, like you, to feel recharged. She's outsourced the most basic function of a human being, regulating her own inner state. She doesn't just want your advice, she wants your calm to become her calm, your confidence to become her confidence. She's effectively asking you to be her psyche's immune system. The problem is, this is a solution that never works in the long run. Your validation is like a bandage on a wound that needs internal stitches. It covers the problem for a while, but doesn't heal it. And by continuing to apply bandages, you unintentionally prevent her from seeking true treatment. You become part of the problem, a comfortable distraction that prevents her from doing the hard work of learning to love herself, of looking at her own wound and understanding where it comes from. You become a painkiller that prevents her from feeling the necessary pain that would drive her to see a surgeon. But here comes the part that requires immense courage on our part. The question that cuts deepest. we need to ask ourselves, why do I stay here, trying to fill a leaky cup? What do I gain from this? The answer, almost always, is hidden in our own shadow. Often, we remain in this dynamic because the role of source feeds our ego. The other's infinite thirst makes us feel abundant. Their need makes us feel needed. It's a subtle way of feeling superior, more evolved, more resolved. While I'm busy being your charger, I don't need to look at my own battery, my own unmet needs, my own fear of loneliness or insignificance. The other's bottomless pit becomes the perfect excuse to avoid looking into our own abyss. The dynamic becomes a dance of mutual convenience. It uses you to avoid dealing with your own emptiness. And you use it to avoid dealing with your own need to feel important, to have a purpose that perhaps you don't find within yourself. Do you see the trap? There's no villain or victim. There are two people locked in a silent agreement to avoid the hardest task there is, finding their own inner source of energy. It's like two cold people hugging each other for warmth, but they're in the middle of a blizzard. The embrace may stave off the freezing for a while, but the warmth they generate is artificial and temporary, drawn from what little they have left. The only real solution is for each person to learn to light their own fire. Your embrace, your help, is only preventing her from feeling the biting cold that would motivate her to search for firewood and a spark. How do you break this cycle? The first step isn't confronting the other person. It's confronting yourself. It's admitting, out loud, in the silence of your room, I feel drained in this relationship, and I'm co-responsible for that. The second step is an act that may seem selfish, but is actually deeply spiritual. It's the act of lovingly starting to turn off the tap. Not all at once, in anger, but gradually and consciously. It means setting boundaries. It means saying no without feeling guilty. A no that isn't a rejection of the person, but a yes to your own mental and energetic health. It means stopping offering solutions and starting to ask questions. When they say, I feel so down today, instead of rushing to cheer them up with your words, you can ask, with genuine curiosity and calm, I'm so sorry you're feeling this way. What do you think you could do for yourself today to feel a little better? You stop being the answer and start being a mirror that invites them to find their own answers. You treat her not as a helpless child, but as a capable adult, even if she's forgotten it. At first, she may resent it. She may seek another source, another carrier, and that's fine. But you'll be doing the only thing that can truly help her. You'll be giving her back the responsibility and the opportunity to repair her own cup. You'll be giving her the most precious gift, faith in her ability to find her own source. And in the process, you'll be reclaiming your own life energy, not to selfishly hoard it, but to invest it where it can truly flourish. In your own growth and in relationships that are a mutual exchange, where both cups fill and overflow, creating a river rather than feeding a well. Let's now analyze a structure that is not an open well, but an impenetrable fortress. It's the closed mind. This person doesn't come to you seeking water. They come to tell you that your water is poisoned and that only theirs is pure. They don't seek help. They seek confirmation. They don't have questions, only answers. Their world is a perfectly drawn map, where everything is already labeled and in its proper place. And your role, in their view, is simply to agree with the geography of their map. Any attempt on your part to suggest that perhaps a new continent exists or that a border might be in the wrong place is seen not as a contribution, but as an invasion, an act of war. Trying to help this person with a new perspective is like trying to plant a flower in concrete. You're not dealing with a lack of knowledge, but with an abundance of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of being wrong, fear that if a single piece of their puzzle is moved, their entire carefully constructed world will crumble. It's the mindset of those who prefer certainty to happiness, because happiness is a fluid and unpredictable state, while certainty offers the illusion of solid ground beneath their feet, even if that ground is a prison cell. Life, with its infinite complexity, is too daunting, so they replace it with a rigid instruction manual. And woe betide anyone who dares suggest that the manual is outdated. For them, this isn't a suggestion. It's heresy, an attack on the only thing keeping them from drowning in chaos. The tragic irony is that this display of absolute certainty is actually a symptom of deep insecurity. Think of a castle with very high and thick walls. These walls are there not because the king is strong, but because he is terrified of what lies outside. Rigid convictions work the same way. They are the walls the ego builds to protect itself from the chaotic and unpredictable vastness of life. The person clings to their ideas like a shipwrecked person clings to a piece of driftwood because they are afraid to let go and have to learn to swim in the complexity of the ocean. For them, an idea is not something he has. It's something that she, and so when you challenge their idea, they don't feel like you're questioning a thought. They feel like you're questioning their existence. And the ego's reaction, when threatened with annihilation, is to fight with all its might. This is why arguments with a closed mind are so frustrating and futile. You present facts, logic, evidence, and instead of generating reflection, this only causes the person to further reinforce their walls. You are, in effect, giving them more material to strengthen their own prison. It's as if, by pointing out a crack in the cell wall, your action only motivates them to plaster it with more cement, making it even more solid. They don't see the crack as an opportunity to look outside, but as a security breach that needs to be immediately closed. Cognitive science has a name for this: the backfire effect. When we're confronted with information that contradicts our deepest beliefs, our brains can interpret it as a personal, almost physical attack. The emotional reaction is so strong that the logical part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is essentially hijacked by the amygdala, the fear center. Instead of processing the new information, we reject it and actively search for reasons to strengthen our original position. In other words, your attempt to help with facts can literally make the person even more convinced of their error. You're not opening their mind, you're helping them close it even more tightly. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. This is why it's impossible to win an argument with someone who isn't interested in the truth, but only in being right. Their quest isn't for clarity, it's for validation. And anything short of validation is, by definition, an attack. Their energy isn't focused on learning, but on defending. They're not a seeker of knowledge. He is a soldier guarding an ideological frontier. And a soldier doesn't talk to the enemy, he shoots. So, if logic doesn't work, if facts are useless, what are we left with? Ancient wisdom offers us a radical alternative: the art of doing nothing, the art of being a mirror. A mirror doesn't argue with what it sees. It doesn't judge the reflection. It doesn't try to embellish the image. It simply shows what's there, silently, coldly, and impartially. In practice, being a mirror means stopping trying to convince. It means letting go of your own ego, which also loves being right. It means stepping out of the debate game, a game no one ever wins. When the closed mind asserts its absolute truth, instead of saying, "No, you're wrong," because you can simply reflect back with a genuine question. And the key word here is genuine. The question can't be a disguised attack, a Socratic trap to corner you. It needs to stem from genuine curiosity. Something like, "It's interesting that you see things that way. What made you so sure about it?" Or, "If you discovered tomorrow that this isn't true, how would you feel? What would change for you?" Notice the difference. You're not attacking the fortress. You're gently offering the person a mirror so they can see themselves within their own fortress. You're shifting the focus of the idea for the person who has the idea. More often than not, she'll look away. She'll change the subject or repeat the same certainty more forcefully, as the mirror can be uncomfortable. But the seed of self-questioning, however small, is planted. Compassion here is understanding that you can't free a prisoner who loves his cell. He must first realize he's in a cell. Your attempt to break down the door will only be seen as an act of violence. The only thing you can do is sit outside the prison, in silence, experiencing your own freedom. Your peace, your calm, your openness to the new become a silent and unnerving testimony that there is a world outside those walls. And perhaps, one day, not because of your arguments, but because of your example, the prisoner will feel the loneliness of his certainty, the claustrophobia of his own mind, and decide, on his own, to look for the key. And the key, almost always, is inside. He just needed a reason to start looking for it. And that reason is never an argument, but rather the sight of someone dancing freely in the sun, outside the gate. Now, let's pull a thread that connects many of these patterns we've discussed. Let's go to the dressing room of the human psyche, to the place where the masks are chosen before the show begins. I'm talking about the grand theater of the ego. Think of the manipulator, who uses your guilt like a puppeteer uses his strings. Think of the rebel, who needs to disagree with you just to feel like they have an identity of their own. Think of the ungrateful, who acts as if the universe owes them something. At first glance, they seem very different characters, but if you look closely, you'll see they're just different costumes worn by the same actor, a self afraid to show its true self. None of these behaviors are born of force. They are the opposite. They are defense strategies of a fragile ego, which feels small and insecure on the stage of life. Like a child hiding behind a monster costume to appear scary, these patterns are masks to hide fear. The manipulator is afraid to ask directly and be rejected, fearing the annihilation of their desire. The rebel is afraid to conform and disappear into the crowd, fearing the annihilation of their individuality. The ungrateful is afraid to feel the vulnerability of gratitude, fearing the annihilation of their self-sufficiency. They all fear, above all, that if they show their true face, the bare face of their needs and frailties, they will not be loved or accepted. The mask is not just a disguise, it is a shield against the perceived annihilation of the self. It is a desperate attempt to control how the world sees them, because they have lost control of how they feel inside. The true danger of these interactions lies not in the other person's mask, but in the fact that they invite us to put on a mask as well. It's an invitation to enter their play. When the manipulator triggers your guilt, you're invited to don the mask of the guilty one in need of redemption. When the rebel challenges you to an argument, you're invited to don the mask of the sage in need of proving his point. When the ungrateful one demands more, you're invited to don the mask of the inexhaustible generous one. And once you accept your role, the game begins. The play unfolds, with predictable dialogue and a circular plot that never goes anywhere. And the saddest part of this story is that, while the two masks are busy interacting, exchanging accusations and justifications, the two real people behind them remain completely alone, invisible to each other. There is no real connection. There is no truth. There is only the hollow sound of two suits of armor clashing in the dark. These interactions are exhausting because acting consumes immense energy. Maintaining a mask, remembering the lines, following the script. All of this is hard work that corrodes the soul. Being authentic, in contrast, is light. It's simply being. The long-term cost of living in this theater is a spiritual hunger that is never satisfied. You may receive applause for your role, you may be loved for your mask, but the real person behind it slowly starves, wasting away in the loneliness of never being truly seen. It's the deepest loneliness there is, being surrounded by people and yet being a complete stranger. The only way to truly help in a situation like this, the only way to introduce the possibility of a real connection, is to do something that seems shocking in theater. Refuse to act. It's what I call an act of stage disobedience. It's when the actor, mid-scene, stops, looks at the other actor, and calmly says, "You know, I don't believe this line anymore. This role doesn't suit me. I'm not going to say this line anymore." Imagine the effect of that. The entire play stops. The other actor, caught off guard, is left without a script. The illusion is shattered. In practice, this means that when the manipulator tries to use guilt, you don't defend or justify yourself. You simply observe the tactic and name it, without aggression. I realize that when you say this, you intend to make me feel guilty. I choose not to participate in this game. When the rebel tries to drag you into a fight, you don't raise your sword. You put it down. I understand that we have different views on this, and that's okay. We don't need to fight about it. The absence of an enemy leaves him with no one to fight against, and he is forced to confront the very emptiness that the fight was filling. Practicing stage disobedience requires immense inner strength, because the other actor will do anything to keep the play going. He will accuse you of being cold, selfish, and uncaring. These accusations are just emergency lines from his script, desperate attempts to force you back into your role. Your task is to remain off stage, even when he tries to pull you by the hand. It is a practice of compassionate fortitude. This act of refusing to play is not an attack. It's an invitation. It's the most honest statement you can make. It's saying, I see your mask. I know it's not you. And it doesn't interest me. But I'm genuinely interested in the person behind it. If and when you want to take it off, I'll be here to talk. This stance creates a vacuum. And in this vacuum, one is forced to confront the futility of their own strategy. The mask becomes heavy when there's no longer an audience to applaud it. It's in this moment of crisis, in this existential discomfort, that one has the opportunity to ask themselves, who am I without this game? Who am I without this mask? This vacuum is a sacred space of potential. It's the silence between the notes that allows the music to exist. At first, it's a terrifying silence for those accustomed to the constant noise of drama. But it is in this silence that a new voice can begin to be heard. The voice of your true self, which has been stifled for so long under the weight of the character. You can't force anyone to take off their mask. That would be violence. But you can, courageously, remove your own. And by presenting yourself authentically, vulnerably, and truly, you offer the other the most precious gift. A mirror that reflects not their fantasy, but the possibility of their own forgotten truth. You become a beacon. You don't go sailing to rescue anyone, but your steady, constant light shows that there is a safe harbor, a place where it's possible to be real. And this is the silent invitation, but it is the most powerful invitation there is. The invitation to finally be real together, to step out of the theater and feel the real texture of life, without scripts, without masks, just the raw truth of our mutual, imperfect humanity. And so, we reach the end of our journey, the heart of the matter. After piercing the fog of human drama, observing the castaway in his self-imposed storm, the well in his infinite thirst, the closed mind in his fortress of certainties, and the actors in their masked theater, the question that remains is, what do we do now? If help as we know it is a trap, if intervention is interference, then what is the way forward? Do we give up on each other? Do we become islands, cold and indifferent, wrapped in our own cloak of selfish wisdom? No. 1,000 times no. The path that reveals itself is not that of indifference, but that of a form of love and compassion far more demanding, more courageous, and ultimately more transformative. It is the path of true compassion. The compassion the world sells us is cheap. It is the feeling of pity that makes us give alms to assuage our own guilt. It is the unsolicited advice we give to feel wiser. It's the rescue we perform to feel like heroes. This compassion is about us. True compassion, however, is never about us. It's the ability to be with another's suffering without the compulsive need to eliminate it. It's the courage to be a witness, not a savior. It's the act of offering your presence, not your solutions. Offering presence is the most difficult and most powerful practice there is. Think about it. When someone you love is suffering, what's your first impulse? It's to fix it. It's to say, don't be like this, it's going to be okay, you should do this or that. These phrases, though well-intentioned, are actually a form of denial. They're a veiled request for the person to stop feeling what they're feeling because their suffering is making us uncomfortable. It's our ego trying to control the situation. True presence is the opposite. It's the ability to sit beside another's pain, in silence, and say with your calm, with your gaze, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." You're not alone in this. Feel what you need to feel. It's creating a safe space, a container, where the other's chaos can exist without judgment and without the pressure of having to disappear. It's being the mountain that remains still while the storm passes. The mountain doesn't try to stop the rain or the wind. It simply offers its solidity, its unwavering presence. Being that mountain for someone is an immeasurable gift, for it is in that presence that they find permission to heal, to feel their own pain to the end, and ultimately find their way out. Your calm becomes an anchor for their drifting boat. You don't tow them back to port, but your steady presence allows them to find the strength to adjust their sails. The other side of true compassion is the art of being a mirror. As we've seen, a mirror doesn't argue, advise, or judge. It simply reflects. Being a mirror for someone means stopping giving answers and starting to ask questions. It means listening so attentively that you're able to reflect back to them the essence of what they've said. When a friend tells you, in despair, "I can't take it anymore, my life is a disaster, nothing's going right," instead of saying, "Of course not, you're amazing," which is a denial of their experience, you can calmly say, "What I hear you saying is that you're feeling completely overwhelmed and hopeless right now. Is that it?" This simple phrase can be revolutionary. For the first time, the person feels truly heard, not just comforted. They see themselves reflected in your words and have the chance to look at themselves more clearly. By asking the question back, you're saying, "I trust your ability to find the answer. It's within you, not me." It's an act of profound respect for the other person's autonomy and inner wisdom, even if they've forgotten they possess it. This practice removes us from the pedestal of wisdom and places us in our proper place, that of a companion on the journey, illuminating the path with a mirror, but not telling the other which way to turn. But to be that mountain, to hold that mirror steady, there is one inescapable prerequisite. We must have done our own inner work. You cannot offer a calm you do not possess. You cannot be a clear mirror if your own surface is clouded with your projections, your fears, and your unresolved needs. That is why this journey, which began with observing others, inevitably ends with us. The final question is always, what about me? What is my standard? Am I the savior who needs someone to rescue to feel valuable? Am I the source who needs an empty cup to feel abundant? Am I the sage who needs an ignorant person to feel intelligent? True compassion for others can only arise from the most ruthless and honest self-observation. It is in the process of calming our own inner storms that we learn to be the mountain. It is in the process of clearing our own vision that we learn to be the mirror. The path outward invariably passes through the interior. So, my invitation to you today isn't to go around diagnosing your friends and family. The invitation is for you to start with yourself. Choose a single relationship in your life where you feel chronically drained. Just one. And this week, practice a single act of true compassion. Maybe it's not offering advice when your tongue itches to do so. Maybe it's standing silently beside someone, simply offering your presence. Maybe it's saying a gentle but firm no to a request that would drain your energy. Start small. Notice what happens, not just in the other person, but most importantly, within yourself. Notice the discomfort, the guilt, and also the small seed of freedom that begins to sprout. This is the work of a lifetime. It's not a quick fix, but a daily practice of becoming more aware, more authentic, and, paradoxically, more capable of loving others in a way that truly liberates them, rather than imprisoning them in our good intentions. True compassion is the ultimate act of faith in life. It is the trust that each soul has its own journey, its own river to navigate. And the greatest gift we can give is our blessing for that journey to unfold, with our loving presence on the shore, not as a savior, but as a silent witness to the incredible and terrifying beauty of a human being finding their own strength, their own light, their own way home. If this journey of reflection resonated with you, if it awakened something in your search for a more authentic life and truer relationships, then I invite you to join this community. Like this video if it brought you some value. Leave a comment, sharing your insight, your story, or even your question. You can do this anonymously if you prefer. The important thing is the exchange. And, of course, subscribe to the channel so we can continue this investigation together, delving ever deeper into the uncomfortable and liberating truths of the human condition.